We've told you about the latest as far as the war is concerned. Now let's talk about the efforts to end it. The diplomatic endeavors to bring peace, the mediation attempts by third parties. We know that Turkey is one of them. For quite some time now, it has been trying to broker truce and initiate talks between the two sides. In fact, back in July, Turkey, with the help of the UN, brokered a critical grain deal. It was widely reported, a deal to free up millions of pounds of Ukrainian grain. Turkey's efforts made international headlines. But there was very little focus on the role that India had played. Yes, New Delhi too was involved in bringing the two sides to the talking table. It played an important behind-the-scenes role in helping sell the plan to Russia. Then in October, when the threat of a nuclear catastrophe emerged, when the fighting reached the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, India intervened yet again. It asked Russia to reconsider its strategy. A month on, India is once again being looked at as a crucial mediator in this war. All courtesy S. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister of India. He will be in Moscow. In fact, he has landed in Moscow to discuss political and economic issues. Naturally, diplomats, geopolitical analysts, and foreign policy experts, they're all keeping a close eye on this visit to see what exactly India intends to do. Whether it will leverage its own position and press Russia to end this war, or whether it will prioritize national interests and focus on strengthening bilateral relations. You see, the world's expectations from India are not unwarranted. New Delhi is in a very unique position vis-a-vis this war. It is one of the biggest democracies in the world, after all. It represents 17% of the world's population. It has friendly ties with both the East and West. And it is a friend to both Russia and Ukraine. Simply put, India is as neutral as it gets in this conflict. So the expectations are bound to be high, as they should be. Many Western countries expect New Delhi to play a crucial role in peacemaking efforts. Like France, for instance. Earlier this year, the French President Emmanuel Macron floated the idea of jointly hosting peace talks with India. A Franco-Indian effort of sorts to broker peace. Sadly, the plan never saw light of day, but Macron's suggestion revealed how India is increasingly being looked at as a peacemaker. Not just by Europe, but the entire world. Look at this headline now. Back in September, Mexico proposed a similar peace plan. The Mexican president suggested setting up a peace committee. A committee that should include India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, and the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. Mexico said the three of them should come together and generate new mechanisms of dialogue and mediation. Unfortunately, this plan too never materialized. But the momentum didn't die down. Look at this report from the New York Times. It was published over the weekend. Read carefully what the headline states. Could India help broker peace in Ukraine? What does this tell you? That India's position as a peacemaker is not manufactured. From Western leaders to the Western media, they all see India as a potential arbitrator, mediator, negotiator, intermediary. Call it whatever you want. Next question. What explains this perception of India? What explains such expectations? One word: merit. India's credibility on both sides. It is one of the few countries in the world which has struck a balance, an effective balance, with both Russia and the West. Not just today, but for decades. Back in the 50s, when the Cold War was at its peak, India came up with a non-aligned movement, a forum of countries which did not side with any particular bloc, an alliance which decided to stay neutral. This helped India to cultivate close relations with both sides. It became an honor strategic partner of the United States. and yet remained a trusted diplomatic ally of Russia. Decades on, India's position remains the same. The Indian Prime Minister enjoys a good rapport with both Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin. His interaction with both leaders are frank and direct, to put it bluntly. And of course, it's the same story with India's foreign minister. Since February this year, he has been shuttling across world capitals, giving candid statements on India's position, a position from where India is prioritizing national interest, and at the same time, trying to bridge the gap between the two warring sides. So when Jaishankar lands in Moscow, he will have all eyes on him, as he does already, on his every move, on his every remark. The week ahead is going to be quite exciting. In fact, earlier today I spoke to Manoj Joshi, a distinguished fellow at ORF. I asked him about the expectations from Dr. Jaishankar's visit. I asked him, how does the world assess India's role in this conflict? And what exactly does India bring to the table? I'll wrap up with story with what he told me. Listen in.
Well, for one thing, it's well known that India has been neutral so far in this conflict. There's been a lot of criticism of India saying that we should actually have supported the Western position, but India has, stuck steadfast to its neutrality. And I think we've also made it a point to maintain contact with the Ukrainians and the Russians, telling them that we must have peace, there must be negotiated settlement, etc. And for example, in the SCO summit last month, Modi told Putin bluntly that today is not an era of war. And likewise, in early October, Modi spoke to Zelensky and said that we should negotiate. They should be open to negotiation. We should try and negotiate with the Russians. At that time, Zelensky was not willing to do it. But I think India does have. India is seen as a neutral party. Of course, given the fact there is a war, actual war going on, there will always be suspicions. For example, India is buying a lot of oil from Russia. So there is suspicion that maybe India is leaning towards Russia. But I think, yes, we do have the credentials. We do have good credentials to act as mediators and possibly to finesse a peace settlement.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.